If I had, in retro, actually, Hawaii was an amazing place to be because I had a vacation destination with 0 tourists for years.
Did you move there? All right, are we recording? Yeah. Is this all on there? Because this is good stuff. Okay.
Perfect.
All right, we'll keep going. All right. So are you, all right. So Michael Ketchen episode,
There's some cuts
whatever
here.
the fuck this one is, Jake. I don't even know. This is going to be amazing. Matthew Hitchcock back
guys?
in the number 2 seat, which is great. Always a pleasure being here. And Zander Kempf. I've talked to you half a dozen times at point in the phone, mastermind together. I've never asked your last name.
All good.
And I was looking at the online social media. I'm like, I'm going to fuck this up. I was like, there's no way I don't fuck this up. And I meant to ask before we went live. Here we
Pronunciation
are.
sometimes isn't a strong suit of yours.
Yeah,
works.
that's putting it play. Listen, Fourth Ave education. Okay. So we were talking. So, dude, your story's wild. We're going to get into everything. But I know we connected in a mastermind. But believe it or not, you're actually from New Hampshire originally, right?
Yep.
So-
Grew up in Amherst.
Yeah. Oh, Amherst, New Hampshire. Okay. So you're like Windham over here. You're one of these fancy guys over here. Over here, Haverhill, Fourth Ave. You're out in Hawaii now. So we were just talking. Did you go to Hawaii during COVID or was it before COVID?
I conveniently moved just before. So my
Oh, you lucky SOB.
first little chunk of time, I had normal Hawaii. And then very shortly thereafter, it was an absolute ghost town.
What is it like being in paradise with no one there?
It was amazing.
Like, can I go to Montana and have no one? Like, I'd be doing cartwheels every day. I can't even do a cartwheel.
Imagine any
I
like
try.
city like Manchester that you live in,
Yeah.
but no cars in the streets. The beaches are empty. The hikes are empty. The surf breaks are empty.
That's nuts.
I mean, there's a million.
Fishing, whatever you want, do whatever you want. Yep.
On Oahu, there's 1 million people that live there. I think on any given day, there's, I don't know, several million tourists.
Yep.
And they're all gone. So you have less than a quarter of what the people that are normally on the island there, and the people that normally take all the resources and fill up the roads and go out on the beaches aren't there.
They're all gone.
And it's just a ghost town, and you have this beautiful paradise to just enjoy.
perfect weather every day.
Yep, 80 and sunny.
Yeah, because it doesn't. I mean, it rains, but it doesn't.
We were talking
it's
about
pretty
that
awesome,
before,
right?
yeah.
Is it kind of like San Diego? It's like not really.
It's the tropical, like 20-minute
The Florida
spreads
style.
to keep everything green.
Natural
It's-
irrigation for
See,
20
a lot
minutes and then
smarter
done.
than I stayed in New Hampshire. I mean, I still traveled, which so my family didn't talk to me for 4 years.
Yeah, we traveled a bunch.
Ironically, yeah, we went on a bunch of trips
Montana,
together.
Atlanta.
Well, Atlanta, so that story doesn't tell. So it's COVID, and now we got a good friend who lives down there, and real estate investor buddy of ours, and it was like one of the wildest times in human history because Atlanta and Georgia was strict, like in the public, right? So during the day, I mean, I remember they were kind of like, "Hey, kind of have a mask, whatever." Dude, the sun went down, and it was like the vampires came out. We were at a steakhouse, Hal's Steakhouse, still to this day my favorite steakhouse.
Oh, yeah,
in the
very
world.
good. Yeah.
And you thought you walked into an episode of Goodfellas. So we're coming from like New England, where New Hampshire was one way, and then Massachusetts was just basically communism. I can't even describe it in a better way, because it's awful. And they were doing everything they could to put the mask on people. And we get down to Atlanta, and we're like, oh, more of this shit. And then nighttime comes, we walk in the house, and Miguel knew. He's like, just watch. We walk in. Dude, people elbow to elbow, jam like sardines,
Yeah.
smoking cigars
Packed.
in a steakhouse out on the floor, drinking. I was in heaven.
love it.
I was in my element.
It was great.
I almost didn't leave. I almost did not leave. I love. We've been back a couple of times.
Yeah,
I
a
love
couple
House.
times. Great spot.
But I feel like it was a mental experiment. Like, dude, we were just talking about before we started recording. COVID messed with me so much. He's in some of the WhatsApp chats we're in. Like, I started driving to the hospitals every morning to do the news reports to show where are all the dead bodies. Like, I was doing like live Channel 5 news to be like, what are we doing here, guys? And we finally got out to Montana. I got to clear my head a little bit because I couldn't take it anymore.
Yeah.
And what a great time though, and this is where I'm bringing this all up in a roundabout way. Start of COVID, we start getting, we do all the things proactively. We're pretty proactive investors. We
Yeah.
call some of our lenders. We pause our mortgage payments. We said like, hey, we think this is going to be bad. No one knows, right? Then we start getting direct payments for tenants from the COVID relief fund. Okay. Then the moment that literally changed, we've actually probably tripled or quadrupled in size since this moment because we made a bet that luckily ended up being right. Is we get, I'm not gonna say the tenant's name because he's still with us, but I'll never forget. We get this COVID relief, and maybe we're a year into COVID at this point, and it says, hey, he's eligible for COVID rent relief, and it was like a 6-month
Yeah.
payment, and I was like, I'm not filling this out. He's not behind, so I called the housing authority, And like, no, he qualifies. I go, listen, I'm not committing fraud for my tenant. Like, I'm not doing this. They go, no, sir, he qualifies. He's fine. Okay. We fill it out. Next thing you know, we get a check for 6 months of payments. Then another one. Then another one from another tenant. I start looking at the M2 money supply. I'm a big economics geek, as you heard me and shout out to Jordan House, our debate there. He's a lot smarter than I am. He's a lot more wordy. But I was like, this is not going to end well. So I go online and I say, this is going to be the greatest buying opportunity of our lifetime over the next 24 months. And sure, I wish we bought more.
I remember we started sending out the information to other tenants because we were like, let's just send it to everybody and maybe people will qualify, maybe they won't.
And you knew with them printing that money and artificially inflating stuff, and we started going after assets where they didn't realize the housing rents were flying because of inflation. And the old landlords were keeping their basis low, so they're keeping their rents flat. And I mean, it's obviously worked out quite well.
Yeah, we first started, we were just doing only market rent because the housing wasn't paying enough.
Yes.
And now it's flipped.
Oh yeah, it's
Aggressively.
absolutely, New Hampshire's insane. Which, I mean, you come from a bunch of markets, but I know you're a smart man. You're a lot smarter than Matt and I. I wanted to bring you on because you're the first guy I know who's transitioning out of multifamily. Because again, you're much smarter than Matt and I. Yeah. And that's when we went to Hawaii. Again, much smarter than Matt and I. And now you're doing RV parks, my friend. So talk to us about RV parks, and we'll get into all the structure and all that. What's going on with RV parks?
Yeah. So first, I'll kind of frame what RV parks are.
Yes.
So it's not mobile home parks.
Which I have fucked that up repeatedly.
Everybody, as soon as you hear park, it's immediately trailer park, low income. So that's not what we're doing.
Yes.
There are some long-term, they call extended stay RV parks. That's not particularly our strategy. We look at more RV, we call them RV resorts. So it's destination style. So these are,
semantics, I like that.
Yeah, these are the places that you go for a weekend with your family. You just go stay for a week. They're near national parks. They have picnic tables and fire pits. Some like KOAs are the destination style. They might have on the high end water slides and spas and all kinds of amenities, just like any other resort would have. The opportunity that we saw with that, there's a couple of them, but first and foremost is the cap rates are exceptionally higher than multifamily.
Yeah, what are we talking, like 7, 8, 9s or 10
Average
caps?
market for RV resorts are 9 or 10 caps.
Wow.
That's sitting on the market today.
Wow.
Then we go buy off market, and then you can get even higher. So
Wow.
our basis, we won't buy anything under a 9 cap unless there's major value add.
He is way smarter than we are. He is just way. And for those,
Sell it all.
We should probably get into it just real quick level. Walk someone through a cap rate, just because we might have some listeners who aren't familiar with that.
Yeah.
So
cap rate's just quite simply the percentage of the property value that you receive in net operating income every year. So if you buy $1 million property at a 10 cap, you're making $100K a year after you pay all your expenses before you pay your mortgage.
Yep. That's a great and simple explanation. And this is used in the world of commercial real estate to value assets. It's tied to NOI. It's what makes us all value-added investors, because the higher you can produce the NOI, the better rate of return, and yada, yada, yada. And then cap rates are actually weirdly inversed. So the lower the cap rate, it's deemed the lower risk. So the higher yields, or the higher value, I guess is the better way to say it, because low cap rates technically probably lower yield.
More expensive.
More expensive. That's why Xander's here. Xander's a lot smarter than I am. But we're both redheads, so we're both pretty great.
We got it.
So staying with it. So that's what an RV resort is, which I didn't know. So like these things will have spas, like hot tubs, like all this.
Yeah, I mean,
stuff.
one we have under contract right now is a hot spring in Colorado. I won't name it because we're not through due diligence yet, but it's a hot spring. There's multiple pools. They sell day passes to the pool.
This is amazing.
There's a store so people can buy coffee and tea and branded merchandise, and then there's the accommodations. So with the RV resorts, the base of the property is quite simply you're leasing out dirt. It's a pad site where you can drive an RV or a van or a camper in, and there's a water and sewer and electric hookup, and you can just plug in and you have your utilities.
Okay.
Some of them, and this one in particular, you can put accommodations on it. So something like a tiny home, a renovated Airstream trailer.
There's like a permanent structure.
It's still, a tiny home on wheels or an Airstream trailer. So it's still technically a vehicle, which helps for the depreciation side because it's personal property. But from a revenue perspective, a pad site might rent out, let's say, for $75 a night. So it's a dirt lot that you can drive, or concrete or gravel, but it's a lot you can drive your RV into and park for the night. You pay $75. Well, when we buy a resort, one of the things we look at is what do the accommodations look like, and what's the ADR, average daily rate, of those. So mainly look on Airbnb and that sort of data.
Yep.
And if a pad site is $75 a night, but if we drop an Airstream trailer on it and can rent it for $250 a night, well, that Airstream trailer might cost us 50 grand. The spread between 75 and 250 a night times the vacancy, we could make our money back in 18 months.
Yeah. And never mind, you're getting the extra asset, you're getting the hospitality, you're getting
Depreciation.
a different kind of clientele potentially
Yeah.
to go through that. Wow. That is wild.
So adding the accommodations is an easy value add that we always look to do. Plus, the whole thing is a business. So you have people coming to stay, even if you just look at a normal, forget the whole spa and pool and day passes and everything. If it was just a normal RV park with pad sites, well, think of everything that you would go need when you're on vacation with your family or with some friends.
Yep.
You need firewood. You need food from local restaurants, which you can
Coffee, water.
advertise. You can have a camp store with your essentials, toothbrush, toothpaste,
You're probably
snacks.
marking up to holy high hell.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So
this
there's
re- this
all
really is a
sorts of revenue.
hospitality, yeah, it's true value add. And then, man, if you're getting a 9 to 10% cap on
Yeah.
that. How do you guys get debt on these? Is it underwritten like any like multifamily,
It's
lower
traditional
LTV, or-
commercial lending, normal 75% LTV. DSCR is a little bit higher, maybe 1.3, 1.4.
Yep.
But at the cap rates, it's no problem to hit that. There's lenders that specialize in it. So, we have some good relationships with different brokers and lenders that just like to do outdoor hospitality. But just like multifamily, there's a whole industry for it. So there's all of those same professionals that focus on this asset class. The nice thing for us is it's way, way smaller. So before, when we're multifamily and you're competing against all the giant institutions, now in the RV world, I think the numbers, I don't remember the multifamily number exactly. I think there's on the order of 400,000 multifamily properties in the U.S.
Yep.
Commercial, 5-unit plus.
Yep.
There's 15,000 RV parks, and 88% of them are mom and pop owned. So that
You're
means
early in this opportunity.
we're early, and I'll get into another piece of the strategy. But just simply from a competition basis, we went from being in a giant crowded stadium to a tiny room with very, very few players, and therefore a really small amount of competition.
You're like Nirvana in 1989, right? That's what he's doing,
With the small players that are there, like, how do you get your data on like the daily rate? Is there like a Price Labs or AirDNA, or is there a certain site specifically for RV?
Yeah, again, so that's one of the challenges is there's a lot less data out there. However, there's certainly enough for us to work with. So for nightly accommodations, AirDNA is a perfect one because just like you Airbnb a house, you can Airbnb a Airstream trailer or a tiny home.
So you'll use AirDNA for some of this data?
For the accommodation data. AirDNA doesn't work for the RV pads,
Got it.
but if we put accommodations onto an RV pad,
You can get a rough estimate.
we can get those numbers.
Yeah,
So occupancy and ADR are the top two that we look at. Something very different from multifamily is seasonality. Depending on location, we have huge swings in summertime, wintertime, depending
Yep.
on what the place is. We do have some off-market data sources. So we did partner with a group that has an algorithm that goes and scrapes a bunch of booking sites. And
Compiles it type deal.
yes, we're able to use that to gauge on the RV park side what the average rates are, the occupancies, and all of that. So a couple different data sources that we pieced together. You can also look at hotel data similar to AirDNA to gauge occupancies and ADRs.
That's a really good point. I have like about a million questions. I'm sure you do too, but I know you said I don't want to forget this train of thought. We'll come back to all this on the operational side. This is fascinating. What was the opportunity you said too that we're early in? Like, where did you want to go with that?
Yeah, so that's kind of the kicker of our investment thesis is, so we're buying really strong cash flowing assets, 9, 10, 11 caps that we can value add to 13, 14, 15 caps. Our cash flow is really solid. The play that we see is the institutional trade. So if you look at what self-storage and mobile home parks did over the last 5-10 years, they looked really similar to what RVs look like now, of high cap rates,
Got it.
very, very decentralized and owned by mom and pops. And the big PE firms and all the institutional guys came in and they did these roll-up strategies where they bought as many as they could They standardized them and they consolidated them, and now cap rates got compressed to lower than multifamily.
Yeah, and they're exiting huge multiples now.
Exactly. So our strategy right now, we're looking to acquire 12 to 16 parks in the next year. And we're going to do the same thing. It's the conventional PE roll-up strategy. If we're going to buy these parks from distressed or from mom and pop operators, we'll value add them. We have development in-house. We can build them out and expand them. And then we'll have this, and we put in institutional level property management. So now we have a large stabilized portfolio of consolidated assets. If our thesis is wrong, we just cash flow. But if we're right and the institutional interest switches from mobile home and self-storage, because those are already kind of filled up, into the RV world, and those cap rates start to compress, we'll have a massive exit at a huge multiple.
Yeah, which is great, which goes back to, yeah, dude, I have so many questions. So let me get to this one, then we'll go back into the operations.
Yeah.
Because I think this is important. And you said something, getting to know you. And this is the first time we talked. Your characters, what really showed to me, we kind of hit it off where I would say we're very different personality-wise. But I like the way you think. I think we're both problem solvers by nature. And we see the value of real estate. You're doing something pretty cool with this for people coming in, where you're doing this in a fund, in a syndication fund, right? Which that means you're going to give a lot of opportunity to a lot of investors to make yourself and them a lot of wealth through real estate, which is what this is all about, right? The government's inflating away our wealth. They're destroying the dollar. We need hard assets. And this is a great opportunity where you can still create something that PE hasn't taken yet, but private equity, if no one knows what PE is. Talk to us a little bit about the fund model. And you're the first guy we've had on to talk about funds. So pretend like me and Matt are 5 and we don't know how it works.
Sure. And first, I want to take a step back and just give my why of why we're doing this and why we
100%.
created the fund. So I grew up here in rural New Hampshire, down in Amherst.
Yeah.
I spent all of my time outdoors. My mom would kick us out of the house in the morning and say, "All right, it's 9 o'clock. You have to go outside. Don't come back till 5."
Yep.
And that was the
Sounds
best
about
thing.
right.
That was the best thing ever, because I go play in the woods and carve sticks and run in swamps and play. But I got to appreciate nature and really love it and enjoy it. And throughout my whole life, through college, through the military, through all my extracurriculars, I've always loved being outside. And that's always been my passion, always what I wanted to do. So when I started my company, Clear Summit Investments, I named it that because I wanted to use my business to go enable that free lifestyle of go climb mountains, Clear Summit. So we've been running Clear Summit for about 7 years now. Switching into this fund model for the RV parks, I really wanted to dive in. I actually really sunk my teeth into this from one of our recent masterminds. The idea of, I've always been very analytical, but the idea of actually creating a brand and a vision that people can buy into. So I've always had what I just described, that love of life, the work to live mentality. And I started to get some of my A players, my partners, together who also shared in this. We always go surf and rock climb and do all the fun stuff together. I was like, hey guys, we've got this opportunity here in the RV park world with this strategy to really create strong cash flow, which is what all of us want. We want to do our business to create a stabilized portfolio that can pay us monthly cash flow for life. If we want to go do more business, we can. If we want to go to Greece on a sailboat, we can. We have the freedom to do that. But first we have to grind and build this thing. So what we created was called the Real Freedom Fund. And we call it Real Freedom because we want to create not just financial freedom, but freedom of time, money, and location for people. And those are the things that you get when you have passive income and not a W-2 job. So we create that's why we created the Real Freedom Fund. The fund itself, the structure is very simple. It's saying, hey, I'm going to get a whole group of investors. So let's say the 3 of us pool our money in, and we're going to create a fund. That's a single LLC. So you get membership in the fund. And then the fund then buys every property. So I mentioned we're buying 12 to 16 RV parks. That's what we estimate we'll buy with the $30 million that we're raising. Every property is owned by the fund. So all the cash flows and everything flow up to it and then are equally distributed. The benefit to the fund model is if one property underperforms or overperforms, everything gets equaled out and distributed. And if one park, say we want to do an expansion or a big value add-on, well, rather than being restricted like in a single syndication with how much money you have, you have a whole portfolio of properties, and you can blend the funds across them.
Yep.
And you can support parks that might be underperforming. You can put more money in and value add ones that are overperforming, and you can really optimize the portfolio. And for something like we want, like that long term, that diversification is key. It also then builds economies of scale, because now at that, the 30 million should turn into roughly $100 million portfolio of asset value. Well, now we have a $100 million fund that we can put all sorts of institutional level efficiencies into, potentially exit at a much stronger valuation
It
than
makes
one-offs.
the exit. It's one buyer, one deal, one clean PE firm paying a 6.5 cap that you went in on a 10 cap going.
Exactly.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
Exactly.
It's unbelievable. And then on the 506C, I'll throw it to you. I don't know if you guys have a question. I got about 100. The 506C stuff. What is this your first 506C?
We've done a couple of them.
Pros, cons. What do you think?
100 times better.
This is one of the questions I wanted to get into.
Okay, 100 times better.
Yeah.
So don't be hard-headed and just getting punched in the face like we are repeatedly with our 506.
I mean, this one's like everyone's got their own opinion on it, and there's different ways to do it.
Yeah.
The 506B, I mean, from my perspective, I'm not an attorney. I don't know all the intricacies of this.
This is not legal. What's it? Jake, if you
No
watch, we
legal
need a
tax.
disclaimer. We are not a legal, whatever the fuck it is. I don't know.
Yeah, that's always got to come up. From my non-legal perspective, practically they're similar. It costs about the same to do the 506B or 506C setup. The only real difference is you can only have accredited investors.
Yeah.
But at the scale that we're going for of raising 30 million, I'm not really interested in the 5 or 10K checks, just because they don't make operational sense for us to deal with. So we have a 50K minimum. And to be an accredited investor as a 506C, as I'm sure you know, you have to make 200K a year, 300K if you file jointly, or you could have a net worth of $1 million or more, not counting your personal house.
Do they get? But the thing we've always been hesitant on, I know I should look at this. You don't get the friends and family exception with the 506C, right?
Correct. So everyone has to be accredited. However, in the U.S., there's 15 million people that fit that description.
Yeah, no, there's plenty, and believe it or not, what you just said is super eye-opening, because I mean that's like our minimum on our funds too. Like we're getting some big check writers. The line we're trying to tote is we want to bring our friends and family along with us. Now, luckily, knock on wood, a lot of our friends in the bucket, they actually qualify. It's more some of the older people in our life. I'm trying not to shout them out on here, but trying to get them in where they're not checking any of those boxes. But we want to give them our infinite return model, and that's, I mean, they're. We got one right now that we're about to close across the country. The cash out refi we're looking at in a year, like $900K in excess proceeds. So now, if they're 5% of that, for a person making $80K a year, that's $30,000 tax free. That helps a lot. So I'm trying to balance, how do you, I don't know, because you also can't slow yourself down, because man, it would just be so much easier.
For sure.
Like I get hip on Instagram so much. So much.
Definitely.
The one we closed yesterday, we couldn't even talk about it online.
100%
Like no one even knows we're doing it. I'm sitting here like, yes, like, hey, we need 1.9 million, but I can't say anything. Like, it's crazy. So how big is the fund going to be? So 30 million?
We're raising 30 million. Okay. And from a numbers side, if that's 100K, if our average investor is 100K, that's 300 people.
Yep.
So 30 million sounds like a lot, but 300 people at 100K each, we can do that.
And when you break it out, and I know a couple of guys in the mastermind we're in have talked a lot. That's been eye-opening. I came back and talked to you and Hannah about it. Like, it doesn't have to be all at once. Like you can call it like you can what do you call it, like trough it or whatever it is. Like
capital calls.
Yeah, like it could be like, hey, we're gonna tranches. Yeah, we're gonna do 2.5 million at a time or 5 million at a time. And
and for us, it'll be about that scale, that 2 to 4 at a time, because that's as we acquire properties, because we're not buying 15 parks at once. We've got 2 we already own, 2 under contract right now. We'll keep piecing through, but probably in a couple of months.
The 2 you already own, are they in the fund or are they different?
Those are going in the fund. They're currently under construction, so we're developing them ourselves, and then once stabilized, we'll put them in the fund.
Will you sell them or refi them to yourselves?
We'll contribute them, so we'll probably sell a portion and keep a portion.
You need some look. Everybody knows real estate investors, equity rich, cash poor, baby.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
It's the name of the game. This latest deal we did was the first time we ever did an acquisition fee, and it's like, thank you.
Thanks.
There's light at the end of the tunnel. I don't have to wait a year and a half to cash flow.
It's a sweet reprieve.
Oh my god, I think
so needed.
Dude, we talk about, and like we can get into this real quick because you've done it now. We've done it. No one talks about the other side of this business, which we buy these unbelievable deals. And it just so happens to work out. Whenever there's a cash out refi, two things happen. One, the lender's costs, I see, are higher than what they're supposed to be. And you're getting less than what you thought. And two, that's always a time. I haven't even told you the big phone call I just got a second ago, case in point. We're about to have like $5 million in cash out refis over the next like 24 months. Deals. That's when deals come up. And it's like, why is this when the deal? It's like they know. And but dude, it's literally running the overhead day to day of a real estate operation. The travel, the networking, the EMD deposits,
legal
the
fees.
legal, all those things. Like people are like, oh, it's so much money. And I go, well, it is. And like when you exit and when you have big wins, it is. But dude, the overhead, when I'm coaching somebody, I tell them like, you got to think bigger because being $1 million liquid is nothing in this business.
Honestly.
And if you had told us that 5 years ago when we started, I'm sure it was the same for you. I would have been like, you're crazy.
We're rich.
It's
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah,
it is
no, it's
absolutely
not.
nothing when money moves fast. What are what are some advice that you would give to someone who wants to get into this space in the syndication world right now? Because I know the acquisition fees. We fought that for a long time. Now I'm like, we're idiots. We should have never thought that. Because the overhead. What is some advice you would give?
I think that's a fantastic point, and I totally agree. It's like the bigger you grow, the poorer you feel, which is absurd.
Good point.
That's the clip for YouTube right there. The bigger you grow, the poorer you feel.
Could be the name of the episode.
So come invest.
Yes, come invest with us so we can all be poor and miserable together. That's amazing. Yeah, so
but it's completely valid. I mean, like you just said, $1 million liquid feels like nothing. Well, like absolutely. And same thing. Years ago, if you had told me I was like $1 million liquid, like I'm done. Go to the beach.
I'm gonna sit on a beach and sip pina colada
But now,
and smoke cigars.
And it is balancing that. Is it a scarcity mentality or is it just figuring out how to stabilize your business? And it's very much your operations get larger. And no, $1 million that's some earnest money, some due diligence. That's one or two deals that don't pencil out.
Yep.
And you really have to be cognizant of it. So,
yeah,
from someone starting off fresh, I would say put an extreme focus on cash reserves, large emergency funds, capital reserves, whatever you want to call it, way more than you think because you will need it at some point. And like you just mentioned with the acquisition fee, I think it's extremely important to figure out how to actually pay yourself. Because it's really easy to look at deals and say, oh, this is going to, create us this much future cash flow. We're going to build this much equity. Well, yeah, you won't see that for 5 or 10 years. Yeah. And you have to pay yourself acquisition fee. You have to, if not within the fund or within the syndication, figure out other ways to generate immediate revenue. Because every other business out there, you sell something, you get paid for it.
Yep.
And in this business, you can so easily dig yourself into a hole.
100%. And we've been fortunate because the deals we've done, partially starting small, partially just with good operators, and partially just our buy box is really good deals. We've done real well with the cash out refis. But this is the first year where we are, getting down to the minutia. And I'll give a real story we uncovered again today. We're getting really into the minutia of every dime of cash flow, right? Because like you just said, everyone does the hype, everyone does the napkin math. Oh, I'm going to make this much. Well, let's actually peel back the layers and go through it. And the slogan I've been now, I'm sure Matt's sick of hearing it at this point because everyone else in the company is, but I've been saying for the last month, we're getting into this bad habit where we're sounding really good. I want to do good again. So sure enough, we're getting ready to sell a building and we get our T12 and I'm combing through things and we start to find errors. And then when we uncovered today, we're supposed to be billing back $7 per unit for trash on rubs. 7 times 26 times 12 and a 7 cap, pretty good amount of money. Yeah. It's in the leases. How many units were we building back trash for?
0 or 2, I think.
Yeah.
Might have been 2.
Not ideal. So, so there was some discussions today.
Yeah.
And new protocols and getting better, but that's a perfect example of those little things that hurt you. So it's like you say, I'm gonna cash flow, I'm gonna do all this. Well, your rehab goes over. Your collections aren't what you thought they were gonna be. It takes longer to lease up. Rates move during your rehab. Like all these things.
And that's just part of growing the company because you're getting more and more removed from the day to day and you're trying to grow. So now it's trying to zone back in on the people that are running more of your day to day and just making sure they're in line with what your expectations are.
Yeah,
really.
your systems, your and I mean, again, and with all that, like we've always got an infinite return. We've always done well, but we're trying to optimize, right? Because we're value add by nature, which that goes back to some of the stuff I wanted to get into on the logistics. I don't imagine, are these parks staffed part-time, full-time? There can't be a lot of staff with these, right? But then you got the amenities. That's the part that threw me off.
Yeah, actually, yeah, we have. So the model for RV resorts is very different from multifamily. You always have an on-site manager.
Really? Okay. All right.
And it's an interesting perk of the business. So for larger parks, you'd have a salaried park manager that lives there full time.
Okay. Like on a pad site, like in a house or something? Or?
Yeah, usually on a pad site.
Okay.
There's a pretty big interest in that type of management.
Yep.
Another term for it's camp hosts.
Camp host. Okay.
And you'll have, the most common is you have a retired couple. The husband might be a little more blue collar. The wife is more like admin type background. And that combo is fantastic because they will come in their RV maybe for 3 or 6 months out of the year, and they will run the park like it's their own. In
Pride
exchange,
of ownership.
yeah. In exchange, they get free pad rent and maybe a small salary. The husband
So
with
you're
a
making out like a bandit.
yeah, the husband can then do all of a lot of the repair handyman type work.
Landscaping, that type of thing.
Yep. And then the wife likes to do the marketing, the admin side. This is stereotypically, but it's a common setup. But you also have younger folk, people in like doing van life or break from college or something, where
it's more affordable to go live in an awesome park for a year
yeah,
than
Especially if
pay.
you enjoy
and
the outdoors.
it's a work
and-
trade. I mean,
yeah.
it's hey, you can stay here for free. In exchange, you do 15 hours a week for us, and you're just going to landscape and
no-brainer.
maintain the property.
You're pretty much on vacation almost.
Yeah, and then you remotely probably need cameras and Starlink, I'm guessing.
Yeah, Starlink's an awesome one because we're near national parks. Oftentimes we're in pretty rural areas, so Starlink has been a huge
A game
value
changer.
add of just
Yeah.
creating high-speed Wi-Fi where you wouldn't have any cable.
Yeah. I saw, that was an article I saw maybe a year and a half ago. And I don't know if this is one of the things that led you to it or not, but it seems like more and more people, they said, are making RV parks their permanent residence. Like they'll bounce around, but it's cheaper and better to roll through these things. Are you guys seeing some of those traveling nomad lifestyle people, or are those not your demographic for where you're going with this?
It's not our target demographic, but it's certainly a group that goes there. And oftentimes we'll offer monthly rates for that because that does introduce another level of stability. We really push that on the off season. So if it's a place that's cold in the winter or it's less attractive,
Fill that lull.
it has some sort of seasonality. Obviously, your rates are much lower than charging a nightly, but you can generate a whole bunch of revenue, and otherwise your nightlies would have been minimal.
It's all NOI. It's all NOI and a cap rate.
Yeah.
I mean, you've heard me rail against this, but this is one of the things that I think is, we don't go as full into the STRs as everyone else. We've done very well with them. I've got a few outside the company. Matt obviously owns the 3 with us. I know he's looking at some too. But I think it's the stupidest thing I've heard from people in the STR industry. Like they think they're reinventing commercial real estate. They're like, you don't want to drop your nightly rate too low because it might hurt your listing. I'm like, have you ever talked to a lender? Like, you show me the lender who's going to give you a cash out refi for the damage you didn't get done with all the revenue you turned down. It's NOI and it's a cap rate. It's not rocket science.
Do the pads get the same amount whether it's an RV or like a van? Or does it change because the RV obviously is a lot bigger than just like a smaller van lifestyle?
So we won't charge based off of what vehicle sits on there.
Okay.
But there are different size pad sites.
Got it.
So some are back in, some are pull through. If you have a really large rig and maybe you're not as cognizant of a driver, you might only want the pull throughs. The larger rigs are stereotypically a little bit more for the older, like the retirees, snowbirds, baby boomer type. Stereotypically, the millennials and Gen Z usually has the smaller campers, the truck bed campers, or vans. And so depending on the type of park that we have and the amenities, we can gear it towards that. Our general strategy is keeping along with the branding of our fund, the Rail Freedom Mindset, is we put that same branding into the parks. So a lot of these, just like back to the PE roll-up strategy, a lot of these parks are owned by mom and pops. Maybe they built them 30 years ago and they've had no need to optimize because they own it outright and they make enough money. Well, we can come in and completely refresh the amenities, repaint, add your health and wellness, hot tub, ice bath, sauna, and some co-working. Those are all really low cost. A barrel sauna, $7,000. It's really low cost amenities to put in.
Yep.
But now we can completely shift the marketing where most RV parks are just feel kind of old and dated.
Yeah.
And if you're, a millennial traveling around in your van and you see this new cool hip RV resort with hot tub, sauna, ice bath, some co-working space, maybe a communal kitchen, so all the other vans sit around it and you guys can hang out at night on an outdoor grill and a big communal fire pit and then hang out in the hot
these guys
tub.
love this. The people who are into this usually love. It's like a community, like you said. I mean, think about your fun, why you went with that way. That's awesome, and that leads to then I started thinking like another opportunity. I would imagine with their mom and pops, like they're probably not doing any SEO marketing. They're probably not getting after it. With Google and.
Yeah, and exactly in line with the optimizing the parks of sometimes they'll have websites, sometimes you have to email them to book on the most extreme side.
Ugh.
And
That's this opportunity, baby.
Yeah.
I mean,
so
it's
much
complete
missed.
upside.
And
But
you
yeah,
go
so
back
we
to
can,
the brand. You're going to have your type of park that's going to have your brand, and now you're going to be in all these different markets, but people are going to come to expect, like, it's like staying at a Ritz-Carlton.
exactly.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah. So big marketing upside there.
Yeah, so I guess just one thing we'll shift to going through, because you said something earlier I think is important, and I want to get your insight on it, is you said you were at a mastermind, you recently realized the importance of having your own brand. Talk to me a little bit about that. What do you mean by that?
So in school, I studied chemical engineering. I've always been extremely analytical, numbers focused, which is done very well for me as like the core of business. But I've never really connected with the emotional side, the storytelling side, until recently. And I started to hear other people do it, just talk about their passion. And it just made me think more and more of like this passion that I have for the outdoors, for health and wellness, and specifically for just living life differently and getting away from the traditional, like you don't have to work until you're 65, 40 hours a week. Like there is a better way to do life. Infinitely better. And the earlier you can realize that, the better off you'll be.
Yep.
So I'm fortunate enough to have learned that or realized that early in my life and have now put my full focus into fixing that and making sure that I can go live the life that I want to live, which is vastly different from the stereotypical American lifestyle.
Yeah. The really in-depth intentionality. And I love that. I think that's going to be an opportunity going with it. So you had any other questions?
No, I think he answered pretty much all the stuff.
I
that
think this was
wanted to
awesome.
touch on.
Where
That was
can
great.
where can people learn more about you, the fund? Where do you want people to hit you up and get a hold of you?
In 5 years from now.
5 years from now.
Yeah.
What happens 5 years from now?
So I do a lot of goal setting every quarter. I sit down and I do 1, 3, 5, 10
You and
year.
Brandon must fucking love each other because it's like, the goals. They look like each other. They're tall in the goal setting. Here we go. All right. So tell me the
Great
5 years.
beards.
Well, I'll say that with a caveat because 1 year I can tell you without a doubt, we have every detail of it mapped out.
Yep.
We're raising $30 million. We're buying 12 to 16 RV resorts in the Rocky Mountain region near national parks. That's what the next 12 months looks like. We have goals for the next 5 and 10 years, but generally speaking, as long as we get to that real freedom lifestyle of we have a stabilized business that's growing and cash flowing, we have the flexibility to go do what we want.
Yep.
So after this 12-month sprint, we're going to reevaluate and maybe we want to do it again. Maybe we want to do it 5 times bigger, or maybe we want to take a 6-month break and go travel and then come back and re-engage.
I'm not going to let you off the hook that easy. And I'm only doing this because someone in the mastermind did this for me, and I had a pretty cool meeting today that BHG is thinking big attraction. So on the spot, gut reaction, the question I ask everybody I coach, everybody I talk to, I'm going to ask it to you. I don't want to hear about your dream day and out on the surf and fucking Big Island or whatever it is out in Hawaii. What does Zander just want an ideal Tuesday to look like 5 years from now?
I want a life that is healthy, so eating good quality food, active, so I'm outside enjoying nature and adventure. I want social, so spending time with friends, probably doing those adventures. And then I want to have a strong purpose. And that purpose is, for me right now, and what I could foresee is succeeding in business. I have a genuine passion for creating businesses, being entrepreneurial, and succeeding. Right now, I'm building businesses for myself and growing the business for my partner and my investors. Our long-term plan is to potentially go more of that VC or incubator route, where we can then use our skill set and our connections and everything to help grow other entrepreneurs and grow businesses that way. Not saying we're going to grow to the scale of a large startup or incubator, but if we can, that's something that I have a passion for and that gives me a purpose, and I can see doing that forever, because I can always sit around a campfire, sit around on surfboards, talking business ideas and coming up with, oh, well, what if we did this? And what if we did this? I'll never get tired of that.
You got to come on a ski trip to Montana. You ski, snowboard, or anything?
I've been skiing since I was 3.
Yeah. January, you're coming to Montana.
Let's do it.
There you go. Join the group. I don't even ski. I just host. It's like golf. I don't even golf. I just host. That was awesome. Where can people get a hold of you and learn more about the fund?
Yeah. ClearSummitInvestments.com.
Okay.
Or just email me, Zander, Zander, at ClearSummitInvest.com.
Okay, and we're going to get him to start doing all the socials, too, because that's where the brand's coming. We're going to get him to start pumping
Yeah.
things.
You hit me on social, Zander Kempf, Kempf.
Yeah, don't fuck it up like I did. That was awesome. Another episode of Michael Ketchen Show. And as always, guys, bet on yourself.